Okay, here's a short video what I'm trying to do on my metal lathe, which I really should have a wood lathe, but I've given those away. Trying to make an inside out Christmas ornament, and might be difficult to see, but you can see the cracks here and here. So this is actually four blocks of wood. They're 1.5 inch square poplar. Not a great choice, but that's what I had. And you glue two pieces together by using a piece of brown paper bag and glue. And that is supposed to hold it well enough to turn it and without coming apart. Well, I didn't find that quite to be true, so I ended up putting banding tape, strapping tape around here as hard as I could, and ended up getting the inside turned and stained and lacquered. Now I need to clean up the stain and that off of the edges, because what's going to happen, and you can't see it, but on the other end each one of these is numbered 1, 2, 3, and 4 with an arrow pointing to the center. So I'm going to take these all out, and they're going to be turned around to where this quarter of a piece here is going to be, this will be inside, and so they'll be stacked, and when I get ready to glue them together, there'll be a hollow spot inside. And then you glue it all back together, put it back in the lathe, and you turn the outside. So there you go. Okay, so as I mentioned before, I haven't broken all of them apart, but here you can see where the brown paper bag was in, but I don't think I will really trust that much. But anyway, this was the outside I turned. Now I'm cleaning up these edges the best I can. Not working perfectly, but I'm sure that with glue in there a good bond will be made, or at least hopefully. So these are going to be glued back together kind of like this, but now I have to break these two apart and these two apart, and then we'll be back. Alright, I didn't bother you with breaking it all apart and finish sanding and etc. But the numbers I was talking about earlier are right here. And originally this number 1 was just turned halfway around with this line pointing to the center, and then pointing to the center, pointing to the center, and etc. Okay, so now they're all turned around with the line pointing outward, and it gives you this. So here's the hollow design. So what we turned first is now inside, and of course what we're going to turn last is outside. But I got a little confused, and I turned this, before was a round piece in the middle that would have fit in the chuck, but I turned it too soon. So now it's useless because the chuck's not going to get around it, and I've destroyed everything by turning it around. So just a little bit of a learning curve. And once in a great while somebody will ask me why I have all the clamps hanging on the wall. This is a terrible thing to clamp together. The glue is all slidey, and every time you apply pressure one place it moves things around to another. But this will give you an idea of what all is involved. Later. Yeah. All right, well, what we've done is we've glued this thing all back together. So now it's right side out and not inside out. And this is what we ended up with from our original inside turning. And I'm going to do one more pass to clean it up a little more. And the edges of this are really almost sharp now. So we'll go in about another 15 thousandths or so and cut across. Now I should really be doing this with lathe wood turning tools, but I don't really have many more, and if I did have them I probably wouldn't use them but a couple times. So anyway, this is like watching grass grow, I know. So as soon as I get across here, I'll stop this, and I'm almost down to where I'm going to hit the chuck that's holding it. So I probably better stop right there. Now you can't really see it, but these are getting sharp in here, and I'm just not quite sure what I'm doing because this is the first one I've ever done. Later. Okay, here we are now. We're getting down to things that get a little bit interesting. I don't know if you can see in here, but right here it's about 1/4 inch thick, and this side drives this side, so I don't dare take this any thinner. Now we're trying to taper this on out this way to get down to a point where you might stand a chance of hanging it up. So this is one of those things of right hand knowing what the other one's doing. So my left hand is making it go this way, and my right hand's making it go in this way to follow the taper. And what you have to understand is you have to make up for the already in place taper that you've cut. This would be pretty easy if you had a computer controlled lathe. But my computer is about to die on me, meaning my brain, so it's but we're getting there. All right, we're getting down to the last part of this, and we're doing the final sanding. It looks like marks in here, but I mean it's so smooth you can't feel them, but I can't sand them out either. So what I'm doing is sanding. Right now I'm running the lathe in reverse. Then you run it forward, and it sands the grain in a little bit different orientation. You can actually, you sand it this way, you sand it the other way. And if I do it again, you can still feel the fibers picking up the sandpaper harder in one direction than you can the other. All right. That was 150. We're going to go up to 400 grit. Stop. And then we have to, on this far end up here, we have to part this off. Now that could be, probably will be dangerous. Who knows what's going to happen. First time I've ever done this. We'll find out. All right, I'm going to try to get in here. I'm not going to take much more out. I'm down to about 1/4 of an inch. Alright, that's as far as I'm going to push it. And then what I like to do is get down in there with, I'll probably have my hands in the way, but with a piece of sandpaper on a paint stick. That's about all we're going to do on the lathe. The rest of it will be handwork. Alright, now we've got a little piece of 3/4 inch brass chucked up in there. And we're going to center bore it. See if we can do this without knocking this jerry-rig camera thing over. Alright. And we'll pull the center out. Now we install the chuck. Bump it to set it. In with a number 28 drill bit. And with brass, normally you don't need to lubricate to drill. Self-lubricating. And we're going to go in about 3/4 of an inch or somewhere like that. Okay, the next thing we'll do is tap it. Alright, we tapped this off camera, and we're going to use this little hanger bolt right here. It's threaded 832 on one end and then screw-in lag bolt type thing on the other. The lag bolt end is a little too long, go in the ornament. So I want to recess this about 200 thousandths. Well, that's probably good enough. Then this should go up in. Thread should take. Then these outside threads should go on up in, and they will if I pull them up in with a pair of pliers. So the next thing we're going to do is face this off. just to clean it up. And we're going to come across the outside just a hair to clean it up. Well, actually, I think I must have used this thing for a drift pin. So anyway, we're going to clean it up all the way to the chuck. All right, let me get set up for something else. Okay, so what we're going to do right now is we're going to cut a recess up in here, not real deep, but the top of the ornament's probably not perfectly flat. And what I want to do is come right to the outside edge. Without going past it. Okay, that's it. All right, so now this is all guesswork. I got to cut this down quite deep. Don't forget, this is the piece that goes on the top of the ornament. And what I'm doing now is turning this way down, and it'll have the string or the wire or whatever to hang it on the tree going through this part I'm turning down. Or at least that's what I plan. Best laid plans, don't you know? At some point here I have to really start watching what I'm doing, because don't forget I got a fairly good sized hole up through the middle already. So about half the strength of the brass is already gone. So I think I'm going to stop here with the recording. Alright, so the easiest way to center something like this is to use this little contraption I built. And kind of hard to see, but the bottom part moves separate of the top, so it moves back and forth, left and right, forward and back. So you simply drop it down carefully between the vice jaws, and this is the width that we're trying to find the exact center. So drop it down, and it's not hardened,
So you have to carefully move the Y in, the Y axis is going in, and if you can see, the pieces are starting to line up. And pretty soon, this ring will fall right down on there. Like so. And you're lined up perfectly with the center. Or as perfect as we need to be. Then we'll drill a hole. We'll spot it with a spotting drill, then drill a hole in the center. Alright, there's really not much exacting about this. The only thing I'm going to try to do is that bolt, the hanger bolt's going to thread up into here probably a good ½ inch, and I want to be above that so I don't have to try to drill through a piece of steel. So here we go. Now we're just going to spot this. We're not going to drill a hole. Okay, now we're just going to put a drill bit in of some size. Not too important what the size is. Now this we're going to drill all the way through. Now while we have that turned and spotted exactly where we need it, we're going to take a bigger bit, center bit, and knock the rough edge off that. And these brass is very grabby, so whenever you don't want to go very deep, take it real slow. All right, now, next thing we got to do is turn this halfway over so this side will line up. And we're going to get it back down close. Like so. Tighten the vise back up and do it again. All right. The next thing we have to do is cut this sucker off, and I would like to have a way to hold it so I could round the top off, but this is all I've got to grab to, so I'm not too sure about all that yet. That's it for now. So here's the finished part that goes on the top. You can see the little recess in here. This is tapped to 832. The side's turned down. It's got a nice radius in here. Hole drilled through for the string to hold it on the tree. And the edges of that are softened. And it's parted off with a 60-degree bit. That is about an hour right there to make that little part. Okay, what we've got here is took a shop rag,
covered the chuck up, punched a hole through it, and then there's a pin going into the Christmas tree ornament. And this keeps the spray out of the chuck. Got the bed covered up well. This is about, I don't know, about the third coat of lacquer. But you know, you can take this stuff as far as you want and run it and run it and run it. Now what I do is I turn the lathe on and run it, you know, about like that, and even a hair faster if you want. And then I just spray. Like so. And then I leave it run, slow it way down, just let it run to keep it from sagging or dripping for about 4 or 5 minutes. Then you think about it, is that pretty enough? If not, you do it again. If not, you do it again. And you should really be rubbing it down between coats, but it's really hard to sand or rub down because of all the notching and etc. in it. So we'll get it done sometime. Hopefully this is the last coat doing it spin dry. Starting to get a pretty good gloss on it. Alright, here's one finished Christmas ornament. It turned out pretty good for my first and maybe last inside ornament. There's the brass ferrule to hang it with at the top. Merry Christmas 2021.